Alongside Robbie Lula, I am Josh Peterson on this Thursday, 1 week out from Thanksgiving, which is indeed on a Thursday this year. Very excited for that.
Oh, nice.
Very excited for
changing
that.
it up this year, huh?
Yeah, very wild and wacky. Wild and wacky. We've been taking your knock-knock jokes all throughout the day because we have tickets to an event of great significance taking place in Madison, Wisconsin this Saturday afternoon. You get said tickets, and then you got to drive there, and, I guess hopefully you can find wherever you're going. But check out the prize. It's very cool. We're taking knock-knock jokes. Funniest one will get those tickets. You got to pick them up by tomorrow. Sweet says, knock-knock.
Who's there?
Nebraska basketball.
Nebraska basketball who?
Exactly. A bit harsh, I thought.
I like that one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Riley says, knock, knock.
Who's there?
I got
who?
I got 99 problems, but a bowl game ain't one.
Ooh.
Nice.
Harsh.
Ooh.
Dunk it on the Huskers.
Ryan says, knock, knock.
Who's there?
The KGB.
The KGB who?
We will ask the questions. Then he adds one of the best lines from The Office.
Oh, so that's from The Office, yeah.
GBR. All right, and then two from Ben. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
No, so this is a really long, it says, knocking on, I don't even know. Should I read this one in full, Nick? Because it's not even a knock, knock, who's there?
No, do the second one.
Okay, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Adolf.
Adolf who?
Adolf hit me in the mouth. That's why I talk this way.
A golf ball hit me in the mouth.
Okay.
Get it? Yeah.
Like a golf ball.
Love the show, fellas. GBR. Keep sending them in, and we will pick one of those. Not at random. We will pick the funniest one, and that person will get to go to the game coming up on Saturday.
I like the KGB one, but do we count that?
Why wouldn't we?
That's a good one.
It was from The Office. It was more like a
that's fair.
quote.
Well,
Listen, most knock-knock jokes are not original.
the funniest
That's
one that we
fair.
liked so far was the one about the dogs.
That's
and that
true.
that was a literal comic strip.
I don't
That's
think he
true.
made that cartoon.
Yeah, I don't. If Michael did that, props
As
to
far
him.
as I know.
Props to him. Yeah, I don't think he did. We were having a conversation, Robbie, before we talked to John about Nebraska's offense in 2018 and 2019 versus Wisconsin, and maybe some of the similarities or reasons that it could happen again. And I thought JD made a great point. He says, "Don't you think the offense was good because of JD Spielman, Stanley Morgan, and Wandale? I had Washington at running back, a Zigbo and Mills later. Those offenses were light years better than Nebraska's 2021 offense." And yeah, that is. And we didn't have time to get into it a bit more, but that's the difference, in my opinion, between what happened in that 2018 game in particular and what's going on right now. I know that team struggled to score points at times, and I know that they went 4-8, so it's not like that was a great team either record-wise. They did not go to a bowl. But that first team, didn't you think it was less like pulling teeth on offense to get yards and points compared to this year's version? This year's version, at times, it seems like it is really, really, really difficult to move the ball, and then they don't finish. But that team, it seemed like it was kind of easy to move the ball, and then when they got in the red zone, they struggled.
Yeah, I often this year am surprised by how many yards they end up with. It kind of sneaks up on you a little bit. And so I definitely understand that point of view on things. And you're right. Some of the best offensive players, especially at the skill positions, were in that first year where you had, Spielman and Morgan and Maurice Washington and Azigbo. That's undeniable. Now, I don't dislike these skill position players on this year's team, but in 19 and 20 for sure, and obviously they didn't play Wisconsin in 20 because of COVID, but in 19 and 20 for sure, there was a pretty significant drop-off. Now, I think it started to dip back up.
Yeah.
You don't see the same level of production this year, and you don't see the personnel rotations and play calling sometimes leave something to be desired.
Yeah.
Whereas in 2018, it seemed like they knew who their best guys were. They played their best guys, and their best guys got the ball. I don't know that that's always the case this year, even though I do like some of the pieces they have.
Yeah, and that's why there's been a really interesting question. I heard Michael ask it of Sipple this morning, or maybe Damon did, but, hey, are you expecting any different, personnel packages out there? Are you expecting to see any different players? Just because, and the question is always, well, why? Why would you? And I think that's a fair question because shouldn't the best players always be playing? But,
you would think so.
There are personal biases that come into play.
And I bring this up real quick on that.
Yeah.
I bring this up a lot because as sports talk radio hosts who don't have college football coaching experience, a lot of times
speak for yourself.
People, excuse me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what your previous life held, but a lot of times people will say, well, don't you think the coaches know better than you? And listen, having coached college sports, I coached college basketball at a small school for almost 10 years at 2 different small schools. You can lose perspective on things.
Yeah.
When you're that close to the situation, when you see guys every single day, you do develop biases. There might be certain habits that players have that you either really like or really dislike that can, to a certain degree, blind you to the bigger picture of what they actually bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something that is a pet peeve of yours that a player does wrong, but that's about all they do wrong, and another player does 3 or 4 things that aren't correct, but they aren't things that bother you as much for whatever reason, there's certain things certain coaches care about way more than others. That's
Definitely.
just how coaches are.
Yeah.
Then you could very easily, and not on purpose and not because of a vendetta or anything like that, but just because of the way your eye sees things, you could play the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. Objectively, you could play the wrong guy. And I think that happens more than people realize.
It just comes down to like what you want or what you emphasize, right? Like what you want and
your personal preferences.
Sure, yeah.
And sometimes you lose the forest for the trees, right? And listen, I've done it.
Yeah.
That's why I know it happens, because I've done it. I know other coaches who have done it across all levels. And it's a thing that happens because when you're with these guys every single day, there's things that you either develop that rub you the wrong way or that you really like about certain guys. And sometimes you focus too much on things that are peripheral.
Yeah.
Right? And so you miss. I do the same thing with basketball players when I'm just watching them on TV. I mean, you know me. I hate James Harden and Russell Westbrook, right? And there's an argument to be made that a lot of times Russell damages a team more than he helps it. But for the course of his career, he's been a very good basketball player.
Yeah.
I don't like how he plays basketball.
Sure, yeah.
Right?
That's a bias against his style that you have.
Yes, because of the way my eye sees the game, I dislike Russell Westbrook.
Because of what you want in a basketball player and team.
And that doesn't mean he's a bad basketball player. Yeah. It means I don't like how he plays.
Yeah.
And that's a very different thing. So sometimes, and I'm not saying we're always right, but it's incredibly plausible that coaches develop these biases and don't play the right guys.
Yeah.
That's a thing that happens. And especially when you have a young coaching staff that doesn't have a ton of experience, it's more likely to happen. The longer you've been around head coaching at major spots and have a self-awareness and you can identify, like I know what my biases are now, I didn't 10 years ago.
Sure.
And I think that especially with, again, younger, newer head coaches, I don't think they're always aware of their own biases, and you can end up playing the wrong guys. That's a thing that happens.
And so it'll be interesting then to see if there are any different players out there that we haven't seen a whole lot.
And the other reason,
as much rather.
The other reason, especially at this point, you're in a lame duck 2 games, right?
Yeah.
See what you have.
And that's why I've said it this week, and
I don't think you're going to see like Logan Smothers.
I know.
Although if you did, I'd totally get it.
I know, and that I said it this week, and it sounds kind of like a defeatist attitude, but I do wish that one of these final 2 games was against,
especially if you get blown out by Wisconsin.
I just want to see some of those young guys, man.
Just see what you have.
Yeah, even though I don't think that Logan Smothers is the answer, I would just like to see it just to see what it looks like. You know.
Well, it doesn't cost you anything really, right?
I mean, a bigger loss, sure.
But this sounds bad. Who cares at this point? Like, you've already made the coaching changes you're going to make. Your record is more or less decided in the fact that you're not playing for anything of significance anymore. Yeah. Maybe you get to 5-7 and you sneak in, you backdoor your way into a bowl game. Ooh, congratulations, right? You still are not, it's impossible for you to finish with a winning record.
Yeah.
You're not playing for the West.
No.
You're not playing for anything.
No.
That matters. You're not playing for your coach's jobs because Frost's fate has already been decided for this year. Your offensive assistant's fates have already been decided for this year. You're not playing for anything except pride. That's it. Which that's a fine thing to play for, and it's plenty for most players. It's plenty of motivation for most players.
You only get 12 of these games a year.
But if you're a coach, you have to look at the bigger picture, right? maybe you feel like you owe it to the 60-year seniors or whatever, but you've all.
Let me ask you this, though.
The season's already a failure
especially
for them.
about Logan Smothers, though. Is it fair to put him out in a game like this? And that's why I said, and it comes off defeatist, I wish that instead of Wisconsin, that the team on the schedule this week
was
was
Maryland or somebody.
Yeah.
Sure. And listen, I'm not suggesting Logan Smothers is that guy that you should throw out there to see what you have. Maybe if it's a late in-game situation where it's gotten out of hand or whatever, sure. Yeah. Maybe get him a few series. But there's other guys that haven't played much that are young that you might want to see what you have, whether on either side of the ball.
Yeah.
Maybe just see what you have. Mm-hmm. And listen, quarterback's a really tough spot, so I understand if they don't do it
Especially
there.
a guy who hasn't played a whole lot.
Guy who hasn't played a whole lot in probably the second best defense in the country. I totally understand
it's unfair to put him in that position out there.
But it wouldn't be crazy to maybe design a package of plays for him.
Sure.
Maybe you don't just hand him a quarter or anything like that.
You don't put him in there in the Cody Green special backed up at your own 1 yard line?
That made me so mad every time Pelini did that.
I wouldn't do that.
But you could either design a package of plays for him and say, hey, these are a handful of things we think you're really good at. Mm-hmm. Let's just see him in action. Yeah. Maybe you save it for Iowa instead of Wisconsin, because Iowa's defense is good, but it's not Wisconsin.
It's not terrifying.
It's not horrifying. It's not going to give Logan Smothers nightmares if he goes out there against him. But again, it's really tough to do it at quarterback, so I understand that. But you could try young guys out at some other positions, maybe work them in for a series every quarter and just see what they look like. Because listen, Wisconsin is your measuring stick right now. Wisconsin and Iowa are your measuring stick. Maybe see what the guys you hope to get you to those levels, see what they look like against those teams.
Yeah. So just another couple things to keep in mind ahead of the game on Saturday. All right, I did want to get to this story because yesterday a statement came down from Bob Bowlesby, the commissioner of the Big 12 Conference. And I'll be honest, man, and maybe I'm wrong, I'd never seen something like this before. And so here's the headline of the story from The Athletic that had the press release. Texas Tech radio announcers removed for next game after criticism of Big 12 officiating versus Iowa State. I thought, wow, that is quite the story. A league, a conference, a commissioner is suspending announcers for the game. And so the immediate thing, of course, that I'm wondering, and I imagine everybody is wondering, is what in the hell
did they say?
What in the hell did they say?
Yeah.
And reading from the statement just a little bit, he said that the comments made by the announcers were contrary to expected levels of respect and professionalism. I understand the roles of the play-by-play and color analyst. However, as university representatives, they also have an obligation to adhere to conference policy regarding comments about game officials, questioning the integrity of conference officials, and specifically calling out members of the officiating crew is well beyond appropriate and permissible behavior. Some pretty harsh words from Bob Bowlesby. Timothy Burke, who you've probably, if you're on Twitter, you've probably seen his work before because he has access to like all of the audio and video that you could seemingly ever want. He went back and dug through this game, and so this is late in the fourth quarter, and there is an overturn that takes place, or rather an upheld. Texas Tech thought that they intercepted the football. They review it. The refs decide they did not intercept the football. By the way, I think the ball hit the ground. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the play in question.
I hadn't. I had heard the audio clips, but I haven't watched it.
I thought the ball hit the ground. There is like 8 minutes worth of audio. We are not, I promise you, we are not going to play all 8 minutes of audio. We have a couple of clips. Here is one of the clips. This one's about a minute long of the announcers for Texas Tech. And by the way, they ended up winning this game 41-38 over Iowa State. So here was, I think this is where a large issue ultimately came from.
I'll say it right now. The Big 12 does not want Iowa State to lose this game.
Yeah, Bob Bowlesby, you need to answer to this. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I've seen some horrendous calls today.
This is ridiculous. Unbelievable. The inconsistency of this referee crew in favor of Iowa State today, unbelievable.
Yeah, that's remarkable.
Unbelievable. Well, I just hope the Tech can come back out after this, score another one, and put this one to bed so this officiating crew can sleep tonight.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Well, maybe the referee has a concussion and he needs to get a trainer because he's acted like it this whole game.
there's something about what's going on the far side of the field that they do not like.
So that was the, that is certainly the main part of all of this, calling them out, saying that they want Iowa State to win the game, then blaming a concussion, perhaps on a bad call that ended up going against them late.
I thought I saw a quote somewhere of something about payment, like insinuating about a payment. I don't remember the exact terminology as well. But, yeah, once I read through and heard some of the statements, I was like, yeah, that probably makes sense for them to be suspended.
And then this clip, I think it's a combination of off-air conversation and on-air conversation.
Okay.
And you're going to hear there's some music, right, Nick, at the beginning of this. And so my guess is that is like the bump-back music for the broadcast. But here is what was also said by the Texas Tech play-by-play announcer.
Yeah, they just said it. We just heard it.
Yep, they're going to,
Such... Well, you're not going to like this. I can tell you that for a fact.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field is an incomplete pass.
So you heard there at the beginning, drops that's BS, and he kind of did that like off mic as he moved away. So that's what happened. Yeah. So when I first saw this story, my immediate reaction was, "Wow, that seems impossible." Did they threaten to murder somebody? Because this seems like they are way overstepping their bounds. But I mean, I guess if they have to adhere to those types of comments, I don't know. This does open up a really interesting Pandora's box, does it not?
I think it's, for me, I mean, you're right. It does.
Because the refs didn't hear this live. They didn't. This is not a coach berating the official in postgame.
Right.
You know, these now they do have to be professional.
Right.
The announcers in this case paid by Texas Tech.
I'll say they're also employees of the school as a coaches. So it's a little bit different role, but they are in a public-facing role as employees of the school.
Yeah, it's interesting because they're an extension of the fans in one way.
Yes.
And
they're an extension of the school
like
in another.
literally, because that's who they're paid by.
So, but here's where I don't, and typically I am all about just, hey, you should be able to mostly say whatever you want as long as you're not threatening anyone or anything like that, right?
But they do make it a little personal.
They make it very personal.
Yeah, maybe not a little.
Call Bowlesby out by name,
yeah.
which is always a bad idea.
Yeah.
If you know Bill Simmons at all, if you start calling commissioners out by name,
you're going to get suspended.
You're going to have a problem. But also, to me, the biggest issue is they question the integrity of the game itself by saying the Big 12 is orchestrating for one team to win over the other, and that's why it's going that way. To me, that's where you draw the line when you call into question whether the game is fixed or not.
Yeah.
And that I understand the Big 12 having obvious issues with that because they basically are doing it just because they don't like calls and not because they have any evidence. This isn't like they've done some in-depth reporting about this specific officiating crew or about corruption within the Big 12 office, and they're bringing it to light during a football game. If that was the case, and they're saying, you know, I wasn't necessarily going to bring this up, but in light of what we're seeing in the officiating of this game, I'd like to bring up some reporting we've done to say X, Y, Z. It's very concerning, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what they're doing. They're mad about calls.
Yep.
And so they're basically doing the Bo Pelini, the BCS. That's why they make this call, right?
Yeah.
Except for it's not even that because Iowa State's not going to the BCS.
Yeah.
So what agenda exactly do they think they have for Iowa State?
Big 12 hates Texas Tech for some reason.
Yeah, and that's...
They hate us because they ain't us.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like, okay, this is, in terms of the things that the Big 12 probably cares about, Iowa State and Texas Tech, I don't think are high on that list ever.
Yeah, especially not now that Iowa State has lost, a bunch of games.
Yeah,
this
if
year.
Iowa State was undefeated in this
still
game,
on their way towards 10-0.
Totally understand, right?
They're the lone team that can make the CFP.
I totally get it, but that's not what's happening here. This isn't Oklahoma or Texas.
Heck, this isn't, as Husker fan says, hey, Texas Tech, try out NU versus A&M in 2010.
Sure.
This isn't that game.
Yeah, and that does look fishy.
That game would have warranted Greg Sharp or Matt Davison. I think Adrian was still in the
being
booth
like,
back then.
What the F is going on here?
Yeah.
Right? But A, the context of this doesn't make sense. And B, it really is out of line to question the integrity of a sport because you think the powers that be want a result to go the other way.
Yeah.
Like, that is out of line.
Indeed.
And so I totally understand the suspension.
I do wonder now if it
was the networks announcers, then we'd be having a different conversation.
That would be.
That's a totally different conversation. Because you're partners, but you're not a representative of either the Big 12 or the school at that point.
You could make an argument, like let's pretend ESPN's announcers did this. ESPN pays you. You know, ESPN pays the Big 12 to air their games. They should have maybe a bit more autonomy.
That's what I'm saying. So if the Big 12 had gone to in a different world, if these were ESPN announcers and they'd gone and said, hey, you need to suspend, I don't even know who ESPN's crew is, Brock Heward and whoever calls games with him.
Blackledge and Sean McDonough.
Yeah, sure.
There you go. That's the ESPN crew.
Yeah, Sean McDonough and Brock Heward say, you need to suspend them for what they said.
Yeah.
And ESPN obliged?
Would that be?
Then we're having a different conversation.
Yeah.
But these are member school employees. I understand why this happened, and I don't think it's out of line.
By the way, going back to Logan Smothers real quick, and we're going to get fired up for football next, and then talk to Robin Washit. Jack says, from what I understand, if Logan Smothers plays 1 minute, he loses his redshirt year. That's true. He does. He's played 4 games. Here's my argument, though, against that is,
who cares? Yeah,
like, are you really worried about a guy losing an eligibility 4 years from now? You know, he's already been on campus for a couple years.
And listen, maybe
I'm being very callous about it, but I don't know. I
don't think it matters because you still, worst case scenario, he still has 3 years left.
Plus, is he even going to finish out his career at Nebraska?
I was going to say, the reason that matters usually is if a guy wants to transfer and he used to have to sit out and you didn't want to burn your redshirt year before you had to sit out. You don't have to sit out anymore. So to me, I was like, I don't even think that's an issue.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not necessarily advocating for Logan Smothers to be the young guy that gets looks. I'm saying young guys that we maybe need to find out about should get looks.
Yeah. And he's true, though. I mean, that is right. He would lose his redshirt year.
I think you need to find out what you have with Logan Smothers, though, because you got Torres coming in, you've got Harburg behind him, who are both different kinds of quarterbacks.
And you're theoretically looking in the transfer portal. You could be looking in the transfer portal.
Maybe you're talking about Adrian trying to come back.
Yeah.
Logan Smothers makes sense when one of these 2 games to give him, again, not saying you should just hand the reins over, but give him a package of plays to look at him at to see what is there so that you know what you need to do.
And Michael, by the way, Severe, co-host of Severe and Betting in the Morning, he does point out Iowa State still had a chance at the Big 12 title game. Plus, it would give OU another chance at a quality win. So the refs.
Sure, but that's not a direct correlation. Like, I don't think that the Big 12 cares whether Iowa State makes the Big 12 title game or not.
I agree.
Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
Riley says, I can't believe that fans and announcers would blame officials and insinuate that the Big 12 had an agenda to skew calls and make them lose. Signed, Nebraska fans and media after the Big 12 championship game versus Texas 2009 and after that game at Texas A&M in 2010. All right, when we return, fired up for football. Got to get you ready for this weekend in college and in the pros, starting tonight with New England at Atlanta, and a whole lot more. Plus, Robin Washit will join us at the bottom of the hour, and we'll talk some Husker hoops and football with him. I got a question off the air about Nebraska basketball that I think is pretty interesting. Ask it to Robin when he joins us at 4:30. But first, need to remind you about a big Week 11 in the NFL, and FanDuel is making the Arizona-Seattle matchup that much more interesting for new customers because they are hooking FanDuel as new customers up with 30-1 odds on either team to win this game outright. How do you take advantage of this deal? Well, you download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today. You put in my promo code, Josh162, and you can turn $5 into $150. And all you got to do is pick one of those teams to win the game straight up. These 2 teams coming off of tough, brutal losses, multi-score losses. Seattle losing to Green Bay, getting shut out for the first time in the Russell Wilson era. Arizona still without Kyler Murray. This past Sunday, they go down to Carolina. What is going to happen? I honestly have no idea. I think I will tell you to take Arizona, and I hope then that $5 can turn into $150 for you. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today, put in that promo code Josh162, and then check out all of the other options that they have. And if you have been on FanDuel already, do not forget that you can now refer a friend. Your friend will get $50, and you will get $50 as well. That's the FanDuel Sportsbook promo code Josh162. 21 plus and present in Iowa. New users only. $10 first deposit is required. Must wager in designated offer market. Max bonus is $150. Restrictions do apply. See full terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-BETS-OFF.